Welcome to my YouTube video. This is the first video of many series that I'm going to be starting off, and the first one is our exercise series. So obviously right now I don't actually have any colorful markers. I'm waiting to get them tomorrow, but we're just going to keep it boring with a black for now. Tomorrow meaning, I don't know, maybe this is going to be a couple of videos later, but for the color, let's enjoy my finger pointer. I've got so many as well. Let me show you. I've got a green one, I've got a purple one, and I've got a red one. I've got all colours of the rainbow, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so this is the layout for the next, I'm going to say 2 months or so, okay? So we're going to start off with exercise and stress today. Then we're going to go into our next video, because I'm going to post weekly. We're going to go into sleep. Then we're going to go into our hormone balance, neurological effects, physiological effects, physical changes that end up happening with exercise, why we should lift as we age as well. And then the final and 8th episode is going to be focused around a quiz. It's obviously going to be a little bit lighthearted, but I just want people to understand how to improve their lifestyle and how these various factors can actually impact our lifestyle and why they could be detrimental or positive. So let's get into it. Obviously, there's a lot of writing on the board, but just bear with me, okay? Now, what is stress? Stress is your body's response to any sort of challenge on demand. Sound like I had a blocked nose there. Anyway, so I want to preface by saying that not all stress is actually bad stress. You have acute stress, and then you have chronic stress as well. So let's talk about exercise. So increased stress during exercise is actually good stress. There's nothing wrong with it. And we're going to go into the kind of hormonal changes that end up happening with exercise. But then let's move on to what could be perceived as a bad stress. So let's talk about financial burdens. So some people, they might be struggling financially. And what that can do is it can potentially lead to chronic stress if you don't resolve the situation, or if you feel like the situation isn't resolved at its earliest point. So again, that could be a bad stress depending on situations. It's very important to say that stress in and of itself is very, very situational dependent. So the situation can determine whether the stress becomes good or bad. Now, I want to touch on the sort of hormones and what can happen during hormonal changes or adaptations or responses during exercise. Cortisol is often regarded as this really bad hormone that can cause all of these potential issues. And yes, that's true in chronic situations. However, follow my finger. Cortisol in the context of exercise, and I know there's a lot of writing, but when I get my colourful markers, then you lot will see, innit? You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm very excited, as you can tell. But anyway, cortisol in the context of exercise provides energy release to improve your performance during exercise. I couldn't fit in the performance here, so I just had to do the N, C, and E just underneath it. Yeah. Anyway, insulin. Now, insulin, again, contextually, it can be perceived as good or bad. You have stuff like insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity, but we're going to touch on that in a moment. Now, what insulin does during exercise is that it
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I don't know why I'm stumbling over my words so much, you know what I'm saying? I'm fasting, I've got a dry mouth. Bear with me. Anyway, insulin in the context of exercise. Nutrients get sent to your muscles, and this is going to allow for fuel. Cortisol in the context of chronic stress, it can actually cause unwanted weight gain. In some people, it might induce stuff like panic attacks and anxiety, because it could potentially lead to a rewiring of the brain, right? So that's in the context of chronic stress, and that's just a very, very simplified answer. Our aim for this series is to do lifestyle made simple. So we're just going to tone everything down. None of this constant scientific jargon. I don't really want to be out here sounding like a scientist, you know what I'm saying? I want to make it easy for people like yourselves who are watching this video to understand. Insulin. You have two types of insulin. We have insulin resistance and we have insulin sensitivity. So it's not two types, but it's kind of 2 times, depending on you as an individual, really. Insulin sensitivity is good. We want that. That's a thumbs up. Where's my thumb? That's a thumbs up right there. There's going to be great artwork during this series, by the way, and during my YouTube journey. So, if anyone wants to sponsor my art journey, I have an example right here of a man who's stressed. He might be stressed because his legs are quite little. I'm not sure. But then we have a thumb over there that also looks like a mountain. So I don't know. Sponsor my art journey, guys. Insulin sensitivity. Now, what insulin sensitivity is really good, because the more muscle you have, the more insulin sensitive your body is. So it means, in the context of when you start eating, so let's say you have, for argument's sake, let's say we have rice. Now, when you have your white rice, it can cause an insulin spike, but then the way that your muscles use that energy is actually beneficial. Now, we have something else that's called insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is not good. We don't want insulin resistance. What insulin resistance can do, in simple terms, it can increase our risk of diabetes. It can also make us feel tired. When you go to work and you have kind of like those midday slumps, again, that could be a potential sign of insulin resistance, but everyone gets it. But again, it can be down to whatever you eat as well. So, context in these situations, or context in the kind of department of exercise and nutrition, is very, very, very important. It's not just you're feeling tired, you're probably diabetic. No, we're not going to be doing any sort of medical diagnoses out here. I've lost my train of thought now because I talk too much. Do you know what I'm saying? That's why I wanted to do YouTube, because it gives me a place where I can just talk all my nonsense. You know what I'm saying? So yes, insulin resistance is actually bad. We don't want that. There are signs, or there are factors that can actually lead to an increased risk of heart disease. Increased insulin resistance is one of those things. Now, if we have insulin resistance, you do have some physical manifestations of it. One of those things can be a larger gut. So if you have a larger midsection and it's a bit tough, like it feels like you've got abs, or it's just solid, again, it could be a potential sign. But again, context is important. So guys, I know this video is a bit chaotic, but I wanted to have a little bit of a chaotic element. I wanted to keep it entertaining. The aim of this is essentially to make lifestyle simple, like I said in the video. And I want it to reach people from poorer socioeconomic backgrounds, from wealthier socioeconomic backgrounds. And I really just want to benefit people. So genuinely, if you guys are going to enjoy this video, or whatever it might be, I do hope that you guys can, support the page, allow the page to grow, because, this is something that I want to do long term, and I really want to help people. I don't agree with the idea of charging people for information that should be free. So let's get back into the video anyway. All right. Now we're going to talk about our coping hormones. I've moved this guy up here. He's screaming up there, but just like and whisper. You know when someone goes, that kind of. Anyway, cortisol. Okay, we're just adding in a simple one-liner. Releases energy during exercise. Insulin restores energy during exercise. Very important to note that these are just for during exercise. Now, our coping hormones, you can't even see my hand, our coping hormones, okay, are dopamine, serotonin, and our endorphins. These are kind of like the main three that get released during exercise. Now, let's talk about what these are for and why they're important. And then we're going to talk about the effects of dopamine, endorphin, serotonin on chronic stress, because I made a note down here, okay? Dopamine is kind of like your reward hormone, yeah? So it's important for kind of like reward signaling, improves motivation, and it can improve your focus and your drive. Now we have our man, I don't know why my throat is so dry. I know why it's dry, but anyway, serotonin. Now this is really good for improving mood, stress resilience, and improving our sleep, which we're going to move on to in the next episode. So again, if you are struggling with sleep, and if you're feeling like your mood is low, and I know a lot of women, for example, when they hit menopause, it can throw your hormones all over the gaff. And you need to ensure that you continue to exercise, because yes, during those periods of time, your motivation is going to be low, but even your mood is going to be worse as well. And then we also have stuff like men with low testosterone, for example. As you age, your testosterone can decrease, and that's totally natural. But again, if you continue with exercise, the constant regular release of dopamines and serotonin and endorphins, it can actually improve your general mental health, but it can also improve all of these other factors that we're currently talking about. Okay, I think I was going to say speaking, and then I said talking, and then I ended up being soaking. Anyway, you know what I'm saying, talking about. Now, endorphins essentially, it's like your body's internal morphine. That's the best way I can explain it. Okay, that doesn't mean that, you know, you should try and hurt yourself as much as possible. Okay, don't do that. But it's a very, very good pain receptor, or it's good at dealing with pain. Okay, so it actually reduces your pain perception. So imagine when you go to the doctors, for example, or when you, after you've had a surgery. You know, for me anyway, you know, whenever I have a surgery, all of my days, I had ACL surgery. I could have been a pro footballer.
Okay.
But anyway, I had an ACL surgery, and I remember I woke up, and I don't know if it's with anyone else, but for me, the anesthesia sends me. I'm basically not in control of my actions, so I guess it's a good thing that, you know, I don't take trouble. You also get the idea of this runner's high. So when you go for a run, for example, for about 20 minutes, and normally it would take about 20 minutes worth of consistent exercise or regular exercise to actually allow your body to release all of these hormones, or whatever else you want to call them. But I generally call them hormones. Now, the runner's high, when you go for a run, for example, you come back and you're in a really good mood, even if generally throughout the day you tend to be in a worse mood. Now, having that is temporary, I'm not going to lie. But again, it can boost your mood temporarily, which then actually changes your perception of the things around you. You tend not to take things in such a negative way, which then means that in terms of our physical stress, because of the pain perception and reduced pain perception, our ability to deal with physical stress is a lot better. Now again, this is no, like, I'm not trying to tell everyone to go and test it out and hurt yourself, but when you lift weights, obviously you're going to feel tired. The lactic acid is going to build up, or the lactate is going to build up. And then you're going to have to push through the pain, because chronic stress is something that is very, very prevalent in today's day and age. And in my job, I meet a lot of people. Let me just put my finger away. Anyway, in my job, I meet a lot of people who are chronically stressed. And unfortunately, let me just pull up my chair. I really want to touch on the fact that chronic stress is not something that we want. Obviously, these acute stresses are fine. But chronic stress, like I said earlier in the video, it can actually reduce a lifespan. And there are a lot of detriments to it. It can even change the way that you perceive the world. And I mean negatively. Once you attract all of this negative emotion and the way that you perceive everything is so negative, you start to actually change in terms of your mental health. Now, what stuff like having a runner's high would do is it allows you to view things in a much more positive manner, and people enjoy being around you, and you enjoy being around people. And that's the way that we're built. We're supposed to be around people. We're not built for an antisocial life. Yes, we can be introverted and we can be extroverted and we can be ambiverts and whatever other verts there are. Vertical jump. But you need to make sure that the chronic stress, if you are stressed and you've been dealing with stress for long periods of time, you have to understand that it is going to impact your health, whether it be physically, whether it be mentally. And you need to start adding in these changes into your lifestyle, whether it be exercise, whether it be nutrition. I've waffled a little bit, but I just want everyone to keep that in mind. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Let me put my chair back. This is my chair, by the way. So let's talk about the effects of dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and how they impact chronic stress positively. Chronic stress can actually cause cortisol to remain elevated, which is why we don't want it. And I already spoke about the issues with that. But it can also lead to an imbalance of our mood regulating chemicals, like dopamine, for example. So these are the effects of chronic stress on dopamine. We have reduced motivation. We have a reduced perception of reward. Even if you're doing something good, your brain can perceive it as I haven't done much, so it's not even anything to be proud of. But then that kind of ties in together. A reduced motivation means a lack of reward or a lack of perception of reward, which then means that your dopamine signaling is actually blunted as a result. But we already said that dopamine is also important for focus. If you have goals in life that you want to achieve, like let's say you're someone who you want to start up your own business, whether it's AI or whatever it might be, you want to start up your own business, and it's important for you to have focus for you to allow that business to flourish. If you have a reduced amount of motivation and then your perception of reward is warped because of chronic stress as a result of blunting dopamine signaling, you're not going to be able to work as hard and you're not going to be able to actually put in the effort that you want to put in. So here's where exercise comes into it. And I mean regular exercise. I don't just mean just doing one session here and there, but regular exercise. Yeah. With exercise, you can have increased dopamine signaling, which as a result leads to increased reward perception. And as a result of that, because these are all linked, you have increased motivation. About this to write down. And then with all of those things, you have an increased focus. So that means that the business that you wanted to start up, boom, now it's global. Have you guys seen that meme? You know the meme of the little blue person, it goes, I'll add it in. Anyway. Exercise allows your brain, sorry. So exercise allows your brain to feel rewarded. Very important. Now we're going to talk about serotonin and endorphins. Now, endorphins with chronic stress. Obviously, the only thing that I'm getting at is the effects of the chronic stress and the effects of exercise are opposite in terms of its impact, right? So, chronic stress, you have an increased perception of stress intensity. So basically, anything that you might be going through, whether it's not that bad, whether it is bad, your perception of it is going to be heightened because now you have chronic stress, which is actually reducing your ability to be able to deal with stress, essentially. You have a worse regulation or poorer regulation of your emotions. So, for example, if someone says something to you and you're a little bit offended, the way that you're going to take that on is you're going to take that on so personally, because now you can't control your emotional response because your body can't regulate it due to chronic stress. And then you have worse stress tolerance. And this kind of ties in with the perception of stress intensity. So again, we go back to if you're going through something, and let's say you just missed the bus and now you're running a little bit late for an event. Okay, that's fine. You missed the bus. No problem. But the way that your brain is going to register it, now I'm using this as part of my body, but the way that your brain is going to register it is that you're going to register it as it's something that's really, really bad and you can't deal with it. And now you're going to allow it to ruin your whole day. Just because of one event or one small event, it doesn't mean that it's going to ruin your entire day. However, this doesn't necessarily invalidate the way that you might be feeling. But again, you need to ensure that with exercise, these things are improved. However, if you have higher levels of stress that have been ongoing, but you have to understand that if you have high levels of stress, these are some of the factors that are going to be impacting your life. With exercise, it's like I said, it's the opposite. So you have a better perception of stress, which means I'll put here a down arrow, but it's actually just low intensity or lower perception of stress intensity, which again just means that you can deal with stress a lot better. And if you're dealing with a tougher situation, you'll be able to deal with it a lot better as well, because your perception of it is that, this isn't that bad. But it just means better stress tolerance, essentially. Just repeated. The next one is you have better emotional regulation. So if someone says something to you, you can just be like, okay, cool, yeah, whatever. You don't allow it to hit you directly in your heart or your sternum, because it actually hurts to get hit in your sternum, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I've been winded so many times. Anyway, so endorphins, its relation to exercise, it makes stress feel more tolerable. Now, let's move on to serotonin. All my days, I forgot to write down serotonin, bro. Okay, wait. So, serotonin has actually been found to improve stuff like anxiety and depression. Serotonin and stress. So, we're going to start off with the first one. You have worse mood. Now, obviously, this is not ideal because, again, it comes down to your perception of the things that you're doing. But even when you wake up in the morning, you don't want to wake up on the wrong side of the bed every single morning. Do you know what I'm saying? Some days you want to be like, do you know what? No, I feel really good today. And naturally, you're going to have your up and down days, but you want more up days and down days, right? So, the next one is poor sleep. And again, sleep, everyone likes to sleep, I presume. Everyone likes to put their head to the pillow and just knock out and, do you know what I'm saying? So, if you have a worse sleep, or your sleep is worse, it means, again, your hormones are going to be thrown off because you're not recovering well enough. It's going to cause unwanted weight gain. You're going to have higher levels of cortisol. And everything kind of ties into one another. Now, and not only that, your energy levels are actually going to be shot. Your immune system is going to be shot. So again, these are other things that you need to take into consideration. And I appreciate, again, when we talk about menopause and low testosterone, these things, stuff like poor sleep, can come into it. But again, you have stuff where you can regulate your hormones, and you have natural means where you can also do so. The next one, poor emotional regulation, similar to that of the endorphins. So, our emotional regulation, this one has been a consistent. If you have high levels of chronic stress, your emotions are all over the place. Keep that in mind. I keep waiting to cough, which is why it sounds like that. Anyway, now let's go into with exercise. So again, it's the opposite. You have an increased mood stability. So your mood stays stable every day. Like, yes, you're gonna deal with different parts of the day where you're gonna be like, can't be asked. But that's normal. We all have that. No one is gonna be happy every single day. However, you want to be happy more days than you're sad or angry or in a bad mood. Better sleep. And again, it ties into stuff like immune function, ties into stuff like recovery, ties into stuff like general health, ties into stuff like reduced cortisol levels. If you have better sleep, all of these things are going to be improved. And then the last one, obviously the opposite of the last one here, we have better emotional resilience. So you can deal with situations a lot. My bad. Basically, I had the flu last week and my throat is just really dry. I just didn't want to say it, but that's beside the point. So better emotions means better mood stability. Better mood stability means better sleep. I do want to say that there are factors that obviously come into chronic stress, and there are factors that come into sleep, which we're going to talk about in the next episode. Sleep can be impacted by your work, by an active brain, if you're constantly doom scrolling. There are many factors. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do a whiteboard format. I wanted to take away all this attention from AI. And our brains are not built for overstimulation. So I'm hoping that this sort of video format actually allows people to be a little stimulated to the right degree, but not overstimulated to the point where your brain is constantly staying active and you're getting all of these smaller dopamine boosts. So the next episode is going to be all about sleep, exercise and sleep. And like I said, I know people like to sleep. So if you like this video, do you know what? Should I do that thing where people ask for likes? Let's get 5 likes, depending on who sees it. But yeah, I hope everyone can enjoy the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And like I said, I'm going to post a video every week for the next 2 months or so. We're going to talk a little bit more about exercise and its effects on various factors of lifestyle. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, I'll see you in the next episode.